I woke up to the hum of the city that never sleeps. The soft clatter of subway trains rumbling beneath my Harlem apartment. The sun was just peeking between the skyscrapers of Midtown Manhattan, bouncing off the glass towers like it had a purpose of its own. Me? I had a purpose too. Always have, always will. Breakfast was quick: 2 eggs, a slice of whole grain toast, and black coffee strong enough to wake the ghosts of my ancestors. Mom always said, "Aisha, keep your receipts, dress for the seat they don't think you deserve, and don't ever forget who you are." Those words rang louder every morning, even 10 years after she first said them. They weren't just advice, they were a survival kit. I pulled on my navy blazer, straightened the collar of my crisp white blouse, and slid into my heels. Standing in front of the mirror, I adjusted my hair just right, not a strand out of place. Not because it mattered to anyone else, but because I knew every detail of presentation was a weapon in the corporate battlefield. Today, I wasn't just Aisha Thompson, Associate Director at Redwood Global. Today, I was ready. The streets were alive. Vendors setting up carts. Music drifting from a nearby block party. The smell of jerk chicken and fresh bagels mixing into a signature New York scent. I felt it in my chest, the pulse of my community. The city had a rhythm, and it moved in sync with the determination pumping through me. My sneakers clicked against the subway steps as I descended, earbuds playing Nina Simone softly in the background. Feeling good, feeling ready, feeling like I owned this city, even if sometimes it felt like the city didn't know it yet. At the subway platform, I watched the morning crowd, suits, ties, and briefcases in uniformed precision. And then there were us, the black professionals, the creatives, the dreamers, the overlooked. I caught eyes with a young man in a hoodie clutching a binder and gave him a nod. Recognition, solidarity. We all knew the game, the rules, the sneaky little microaggressions that threaded through the day. Someone assuming you're the intern when you're leading the meeting. Someone commenting on your lively personality instead of your proposal. The subtle tokenism that whispered, "You're here, but not really here." I breathed in, let it out slow. Redwood Global's glass doors loomed ahead, reflecting the morning sky, a fortress of ambition, politics, and subtle wars. I'd been here 10 years, climbing ladders that were slippery and sometimes invisible. But I'd learned to move with grace, to strike with precision, to navigate the storm without letting anyone see the cracks. Inside, the office smelled like new carpet and ambition. The air conditioning hummed, blending with the soft murmur of early morning calls and keyboard taps. I passed the reception desk, nodded to the security guard who had seen me grow from intern to associate director, and headed straight to my desk. Emails awaited, always a river of them. Some urgent, some trivial, all demanding attention. I scanned through. Budget revisions, client updates, a request from HR for a late report. Nothing out of the ordinary. But I knew better. In corporate life, the ordinary was often camouflage. Behind polite requests and seemingly minor oversights lay decisions that could derail careers. And everyone at Redwood, from Blake, the CEO who smiled too often while scheming, to the HR managers who nodded while plotting office politics, understood the art of subtle sabotage. I poured more coffee, sat back, and let my mind wander for a second. 10 years. 10 years of late nights, of mentorship sessions with Dr. Langston who had taught me to negotiate like a lioness, of family dinners where mom and dad reminded me that intelligence was nothing without perseverance. 10 years of fighting, of proving myself in rooms that weren't built for people like me, of hearing the whispers, "She's ambitious for a black woman." I shook it off. Today wasn't about whispers. Today was about presence, about power. My project, the Atlantic Partnership proposal, was about to hit the executive floor. This was my shot, or at least it should have been. Mentor's words echoed in my head again. "Aisha, remember your ancestors. They fought harder battles than office politics. Stand tall, don't shrink. Your fire is bigger than their doubts." I smiled. It was funny how comforting it was to think about HBCU days, late-night study sessions, pep rallies, and professors who saw potential where others saw a black girl from Harlem. They had trained me for this world. though no one could prepare anyone for the subtle undermining. The invisible lines drawn under your desk. The token nods that felt like chains. The elevator dinged, and I stepped inside. Glass walls, polished metal, the faint scent of expensive perfume lingering from executives before me. I caught a reflection of myself in the mirrored wall, powerful, precise, yet human. Someone who had learned to play chess while others thought it was checkers. Someone ready to move, strike, survive. The office floor buzzed. Phones rang. Chairs rolled. Whispers carried across cubicles. And there I was, at my desk, preparing to present not just data but vision. I knew every figure, every forecast, every nuance of the proposal. I had built it with care, sweat, and a dash of cunning. Everyone expected Aisha Thompson to be competent. But what they didn't always anticipate was strategy. The quiet, unshakable force that made people either respect you or fear you. I glanced at a framed photo on my desk. Mom, Dad, and Grandma Ruth smiling at a family reunion. Grandma's hat tilted just so. A signature Brooklyn grin. I touched the frame gently. I won't let anyone rewrite my story. I whispered, and I meant it. It was 10 o'clock. The executive team was gathering in the boardroom. Blake would smile, shake hands, make small talk. But today, I was armed with more than numbers. I was armed with resolve. I was black, brilliant, and I refused to be invisible. The click of heels echoed down the hall as I approached the boardroom. Other executives glanced, nodded, some condescendingly, some with genuine respect, most unaware of the storm about to enter. I breathed deeply. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and ambition. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but anticipation. Today, I wasn't just walking into a meeting. I was stepping into a battlefield I had known all my life. And I was ready to claim what was mine. I opened the door. The murmur of conversation hushed slightly. Blake looked up, eyes flickering briefly with what I knew was either surprise or irritation. I didn't care which. I had done my homework. I had prepared. I had fought quietly for years, navigating microaggressions, subtle biases, and office politics. And today, I would make my presence undeniable. As I set my laptop on the table, ready to begin, I let the mantra roll through my mind one more time. Keep your receipts. Dress for the seat they don't think you deserve. Stand tall. Your fire is bigger than their doubts. And with that, Aisha Thompson, black, bold, and brilliant, prepared to take the first step in a day that would change everything. The boardroom smelled like power and polished wood. The kind that reminds you that ambition is currency here. And everything else is negotiable. I set my laptop down, organized my notes, and prepared to pitch the Atlantic Partnership proposal, the project that would cement my spot as senior director. Years of late nights, weekends sacrificed, mentorships, and presentations had led to this moment. Blake, the CEO, leaned back in his chair with that too-perfect smile. Aisha, thanks for coming in early. We're excited to hear your thoughts. His eyes lingered just a beat too long on Marcus, the new hire, who'd somehow risen faster than his experience justified. I started. My voice was calm but firm. Every slide precise. Every number unassailable. The Atlantic Partnership proposal not only forecasts revenue growth but positions Redwood as a market leader in emerging sectors. With our plan, projected Q4 returns could increase by 18%, conservative estimates. Heads nodded. I could feel the energy shift in the room. This was my lane. I owned it. Then came the whisper, just enough for me to hear over the hum of fluorescent lights. She's thorough, but can she handle the board attention? I glanced at Marcus, smiled politely. Nothing yet. Keep your receipts. Mom's voice echoed. Blake cleared his throat. Excellent presentation, Aisha. Impressive numbers, as always. However, my stomach sank. The word hung like a guillotine. However, Blake continued, we've decided that Marcus will lead this project moving forward. A fresh perspective, you know? Fresh perspective. Translation. Someone safer. Safer because he was younger. White. And, let's be honest, easier to overlook in terms of scrutiny. My pulse hammered. I clenched my fists under the table, forcing a smile. Marcus? I asked evenly. Did I miss a conversation? Blake smiled. Too smooth. No, just a strategic decision. Team dynamics. Diversity of thought. You understand. I understood. I understood perfectly. Microaggressions layered like bricks against me. Each one subtle, deliberate, tokenism disguised as strategy. My promotion had been hijacked in real time. The meeting ended with polite nods and handshakes. I walked back to my office, feeling the weight of 10 years compressed into a single exhale. My team looked concerned. Are you okay? Asked Simone. My project analyst. Black, sharp, and loyal. I forced a smile. I'm fine. Just recalibrating. Her eyes narrowed. They stole it. Yeah, I said, finally letting the words out. They did, and it's not the first time they've tried. Marcus popped his head into the office. Cheerful, oblivious. Aisha, can't wait to dive in on the Atlantic proposal. I'm counting on your guidance. I held his gaze, smiled wider. Of course, happy to help. The moment he left, I slammed my laptop shut. My office, usually a haven, felt like a cage. Every chair, every framed certificate on the wall, suddenly reminded me that acknowledgement here was conditional. That merit alone wasn't enough. I walked to the window, staring down at the streets below. Subway trains snaked through the city like arteries, carrying the heartbeat of people hustling for survival, for recognition, for justice. And me? I had fought my way here with blood, sweat, and sheer intellect. I wouldn't let a single promotion, or a single smile from a CEO, rewrite my story. I replayed every interaction in my mind. Every subtle slight, every underestimation, Blake's phrasing, HR's overly friendly smiles, the whispered doubts in the hallways. Keep your receipts. Every email, every memo, every casual comment could be a weapon if used correctly. I started pulling files, contracts, emails, meeting notes, reports, anything that showed my contributions were not just equal but superior. Evidence became my shield and my sword. Marcus might be leading the presentation tomorrow, but I had the real firepower. Simone leaned against the doorframe. You're thinking revenge. I didn't flinch. I'm thinking justice. There's a difference. And yes, I've got a plan. She grinned. I like that. What's step 1? I turned, eyes burning with focus. Step 1. Document everything. Step 2. Find witnesses. Allies. Step 3. Make it public if I have to. People need to see what happens when merit is ignored. The adrenaline surged. I could almost hear Grandma Ruth's voice in my ear. They can take your title, baby, but never let them take your fire. Keep your receipts. The city skyline glinted outside my window. Midtown hummed with life, indifferent to the small wars waged inside glass towers. I clenched my fists again, imagining Blake's smug smile. I would dismantle it, piece by piece, not with noise, not with tantrums, but with strategy, precision, and undeniable evidence. By the end of the day, emails were archived, notes labeled, receipts organized. Every document, every message, every acknowledgement of my work was a weapon waiting to be deployed. Marcus didn't know yet that I was already 10 moves ahead in a game he didn't understand. Simone left, giving me a knowing nod. Ready to change the rules? I've never been more ready, I whispered. And in that moment, Aisha Thompson, the black woman who had navigated every microaggression, every subtle bias, every stolen opportunity, realized something crucial. The system underestimated her because she was brilliant and black. And underestimation, if handled correctly, was the perfect opening for a comeback. The boardroom tomorrow wouldn't just be a meeting. It would be a reckoning. The night office was quieter than usual. The hum of air conditioning and the distant siren from the street below were the only sounds keeping me company. Midnight oil? Always. My fingers tapped across the keyboard, opening folders, scrolling through emails, PDFs, meeting notes, everything that documented my work. Every good job email. Every contribution that had been quietly attributed to someone else. I stopped at one email thread. My heart skipped. It was from Blake to Our. Marked, confidential. Subject, Atlantic Project Reassignment, talking points. I clicked. The words jumped off the screen. Marcus to lead. Aisha's involvement limited to support. Make sure client-facing materials downplay her contributions. Bored to see Marcus as lead. I leaned back in my chair, breathing shallow. The confirmation was crystal clear. Not an oversight, not a misunderstanding, a deliberate, orchestrated erasure of my effort. Keep your receipts, Grandma's voice echoed. I grabbed my phone. Simone. Simone, I need you now, I whispered, not even bothering with hello. 20 minutes later, she slid into my office. Coffee in hand. What's burning? I held up the screen. This. Read it. Her eyes widened, scanning the words. They're serious. That's malicious. Every promotion I've earned, every pitch, every late-night grind, they've been rewriting history for months. Simone sat down, shaking her head. We've got to be careful. One wrong move and it's your job, Aisha, or worse. I nodded. I know, but careful doesn't mean silent. This is bigger than us. This is about what people like me face every day. Being underestimated. Erased. Sidelined. Her gaze softened. You always planned for this? I smirked, leaning back. Not exactly, but I'm learning fast. The next few days were a blur of subtle reconnaissance. Every meeting, every casual hallway chat, every whispered joke in the break room, my radar was on. I started cross-referencing emails, aligning timestamps with meetings, and pulling in any acknowledgement of my contributions that could counter the official story. And then I found it. The client reports Marcus had presented? The numbers were mine. The slides? Developed on my laptop. The talking points? Written in my emails weeks ago. He had the charisma, I had the work. But the world didn't always reward that. Not immediately, not without proof. I documented it all meticulously. Screenshots, metadata, email threads, version histories. I color-coded the evidence, creating a timeline that was undeniable. One evening, I called Marcus. I didn't want to sound aggressive, just calm. Calculated. Marcus, we need to talk about the Atlantic proposal. Sure, Aisha, what's up? His tone was cheerful, completely unaware. I leaned on the truth. I want to make sure the team knows whose work is whose. There's some confusion. Want to review the documents together? A pause. Sure, I guess. It was a test. His hesitation, his nervous glance at his laptop, confirmed something I'd suspected. He knew, but had banked on the hierarchy protecting him. The next morning, I met with a senior mentor from my HBCU alum network, Drive. Collins. I'd kept him updated over the years, sending achievements, small wins, just to maintain that bridge. He listened, eyes narrowing at my screenshots and timeline. Aisha, this is rock solid. This isn't just receipts. This is proof of systemic undermining. Exactly, I said, and it stops here. I don't want revenge for the sake of ego. I want accountability. Redwood can't keep ignoring merit because of bias. He nodded. Then play it smart. Evidence first, allies second, and remember, timing is everything. I left his office with renewed focus. This wasn't just a battle for a promotion. It was a reckoning for anyone who had been tokenized, underestimated, or erased. My strategy started forming in layers. Internal allies. Simone. A few trusted colleagues who had witnessed microaggressions. Evidence. Emails. Contracts. Reports. Everything meticulously timestamped. Public leverage. Alumni network. Social media. Carefully framed. And HR compliance. Boardroom confrontation. The ultimate reveal. Undeniable and cinematic. Every night, I rehearsed conversations, drafted emails, imagined questions from Blake, the board, and even Marcus. Every possible reaction was catalogued. Every weak spot exploited. Then, a curveball. During a casual check-in with I overheard them speaking about damage control. Phrases like, we need to keep Aisha from making waves. She's smart, but unpredictable, floated in the air like smoke. Unpredictable. Funny. They thought my integrity and intelligence were liabilities. I smiled. Let them think that. That miscalculation would be their undoing. That night, as the city lights glittered like scattered diamonds below my office window, I realized I had reached a turning point. I was no longer reacting. I was orchestrating. Every move calculated. Every detail archived. The stolen promotion wasn't the end, it was the spark. Aisha Thompson wasn't just a candidate for a title. She was a force about to redefine what power looked like in a corporate tower where the system had always underestimated women like her. And tomorrow? Tomorrow would be about planting the first seeds of accountability. The storm was coming, and I was in control. The office buzzed that morning like any other Tuesday. But my world felt different. Every coffee sip, every elevator ride, every swipe of the ID badge reminded me I was no longer just surviving, I was plotting. Not revenge for spite. No, justice, accountability, recognition for everyone like me who had been sidelined, tokenized, or quietly erased. I leaned over Simone's desk. We need a game plan. Step 1. Allies. Step 2. Receipts. Step 3. Timing. She smirked, raising an eyebrow. You sound like a general briefing troops before battle. Exactly, I said, but the battlefield is corporate. And the weapons are brains, patience, and evidence. We started with internal allies. Not everyone, just those who had quietly witnessed the inequities but feared retaliation. Andre, from finance, had seen Marcus take credit for reports he didn't write. Latoya, marketing, had heard subtle jabs in meetings that no one else dared mention. They needed validation, someone who would champion truth without burning bridges. I called a confidential meeting in the break room after hours. The smell of leftover bagels and reheated coffee couldn't dampen the electricity in the room. I know you've noticed the bias. I started, my voice calm but firm. I've collected receipts, emails, reports, slides, every contribution, every idea credited elsewhere. This isn't about ego. This is about what's right. And it's time we make it visible. Andre shuffled nervously. Visible, how? Step 1. Document every meeting. Every milestone. Step 2. Let's support each other in presenting facts to HR or the board. Step 3. Leverage the networks outside Redwood. Our alumni, our professional groups, social media, but carefully. Strategically. Latoya nodded, eyes determined. I'm in. No more silencing ourselves. We spent the next week collecting more evidence. Screenshots, timestamps, emails threaded in color-coded spreadsheets. I even recreated the presentations Marcus had stolen, side by side with my original files. Every detail meticulously archived. The contrast was undeniable. Meanwhile, I began planting subtle questions in hallway conversations. In team meetings. Creating a ripple. Have you seen the latest slides? Oh, I thought Marcus put the numbers together. But I worked on that draft last week. Each statement was a breadcrumb for anyone paying attention. Not accusatory, just factual. I also drafted emails to our. Carefully worded. No emotion, no finger pointing. Just facts, just receipts. But before sending, I ran them by Dr. Collins. Tone is perfect, he said over Zoom. Direct, firm, undeniable. You want them to have no choice but to acknowledge it. The next layer was social leverage. I reached out to my HBCU alumni community. Not to broadcast the scandal, but to frame it as a case study in professional integrity and systemic bias. A virtual lunch and learn was scheduled, disguised as a networking session. Alumni would see the proof and provide quiet but powerful endorsements. At night, I rehearsed, alone, in my apartment with city lights painting shadows on the walls. I practiced delivering my case. To Blake, to the board, short sentences, pauses for impact, strong eye contact, controlled intensity, every word intentional. Then came a subtle test. A client email misattributed my work. Instead of reacting publicly, I responded directly, calmly, with evidence attached. Marcus was copied. Blake was copied. HR silently received the documentation. The shift was immediate. Suspicious glances. Awkward pauses in meetings. Hushed hallway whispers. Simone leaned over one afternoon. You're changing the air in this office. People feel it, even if they don't say it. I smiled faintly. It's not me. It's the truth. People respect truth more than charisma when it's undeniable. I also began to map out timing. Redwood had a quarterly board meeting in 3 weeks. A perfect stage. I wanted maximum impact. Enough evidence to expose the inequity without seeming vindictive. Enough allies present to support credibility. Enough subtle pre-build-up that the board couldn't ignore it. Every night, I would write a personal reflection in my journal. Not for anyone else, just me. My grandmother's words, my mother's encouragement, mentor's guidance. Dress for the seat they don't think you deserve. I visualized walking into that boardroom. Calm, poised, commanding. They would see my work, my contributions, my strategy, and finally, they would have to acknowledge it. Then came a twist. One late night, while reviewing documents, I noticed a pattern. Marcus had forwarded some client feedback to Blake, but not all of it. The emails were edited subtly to diminish my contributions. I sat back, a slow smile spreading. That was it. That small slip would be the linchpin of my argument. The thread I could pull to unravel the entire narrative. I called Simone. We might have the smoking gun. Remember the Atlantic project? Marcus forwarded edited feedback. They omitted praise specifically for my leadership. If we line this up with my timeline. I trailed off, excitement simmering. Her voice came through. Steady. We're going to make them see it. Every last piece. And in that moment, I realized, the strategy wasn't just about getting what I deserved. It was about rewriting the rules. Showing that merit, integrity, and preparation could break through bias. Even in a high-rise tower where systemic inequities had been quietly tolerated for decades. Every day, every interaction, every document, every conversation was a chess move. I had transitioned from reaction to orchestration. Redwood might have underestimated me. But the boardroom showdown, and the broader reckoning, was already in motion. Tomorrow, I would begin the subtle phase of exposure. The ripple effect, the gentle nudging of perceptions. Carefully calibrated, before the storm. I was ready. The morning of the quarterly board meeting. I woke to the hum of Manhattan outside my apartment window. The city was alive, unaware of the storm that was about to hit the 42nd floor of Redwood Global. I sipped my coffee slowly, feeling the weight of preparation. The hours of planning. The meticulous gathering of receipts, emails, and endorsements from allies and alumni. Dress for the seat they don't think you deserve. I ran it through my mind like a mantra. Straightening my blazer, adjusting my necklace. Every detail mattered. Every inch of confidence mattered. In the elevator, Simone, Latoya, and Andre flanked me. Quiet nods, tight smiles. We didn't need words. Our presence spoke volumes. The boardroom was pristine, glass walls reflecting the skyline. Blake sat at the head, already smirking, expecting the usual Tuesday submission of reports and pitches. Marcus sat beside him, fidgeting, unaware that the tides were about to turn. Morning, everyone, I began, my voice calm, steady, but carrying the weight of authority. Thank you for allowing me this time. Blake's eyebrow quirked. Of course, Aisha, let's hear it. His tone was casual, almost mocking. I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared. A timeline of the Atlantic project. Highlighting contributions, emails, client praise, every milestone meticulously documented. This is the Atlantic project, I said, pointing to the first highlight. The team, led by me, delivered on every metric promised. Every client feedback, every internal milestone, every report, documented here. Marcus shifted. Blake leaned back. A tension hummed in the room. Almost audible. Now, I continued, flipping slides. There was an issue with attribution. Some reports, presentations, and feedback were misrepresented. I paused, letting the statement settle like a weight in the air. Specifically, contributions I made were forwarded selectively, edited, or omitted entirely. I've compiled every instance for clarity. Screenshots, emails, slides, side-by-side comparisons, client praise highlighted. The room grew quieter. Blake's smugness faded, replaced with the sharp edge of unease. Andre chimed in softly, nodding toward the board. I've corroborated these timelines. Every email matches our internal records. Latoya added, and marketing feedback aligns with Aisha's original drafts. We've double-checked everything. Blake's jaw tightened. And, what are you implying? Exactly? His tone carried the first hint of panic. That integrity was compromised, I said, and that those responsible must be held accountable. Not for revenge, but for fairness and transparency. Redwood's culture is only as strong as the honesty we uphold. Today, we set the record straight. A few board members exchanged glances. Some whispered quietly. I could feel the shift. The subtle realignment of power. Blake cleared his throat. Aisha, Marcus, is there? I interrupted gently, intentionally, clicking to the next slide. An email thread showing Marcus forwarding partial client feedback. Omitting the praise I earned. This, I said, pointing, is the key example. The Atlantic project delivered excellence because of the team. My contributions, specifically, were minimized intentionally. Here is the proof. Gasps. A shuffle of papers. Marcus's face went pale. Blake's eyes darted, searching for an escape route. But the narrative was undeniable. I paused, letting the room absorb the weight. Silence was my ally. Silence. And the undeniable truth displayed in black and white. Redwood must stand for merit. I said finally. Not favoritism. Not selective memory. Not microaggressions disguised as policy. And as a black woman in corporate America, I refuse to let talent and hard work be erased under the guise of hierarchy. I clicked to the final slide. A clear proposal for internal reforms, acknowledging contributions properly. Transparent promotion processes, and mentorship for underrepresented employees. A path forward, constructive and undeniable. A board member, Ms. Patel, spoke softly but firmly. Aisha, this is thorough. Your documentation is impeccable. Blake finally found his voice. Strained. We'll review this, certainly, but. No buts, I said, meeting his gaze steadily. We act. Today, we make change visible, not just for me, but for every person who's been sidelined. Every voice that's been muted. This is not a threat, it's accountability. And you can either lead, or follow the truth. There was a pause, heavy and tense. Then, a slow nod from the majority of the board. A few murmurs of agreement. Whispers of acknowledgement. The room shifted. Authority had been redefined. Marcus tried to mutter something under his breath. But I ignored him. This was bigger than ego. Bigger than retaliation. This was a reckoning. Simone leaned over, whispering, You did it. You set the room straight. I nodded subtly, letting the adrenaline wash over me. I had orchestrated every step. Allies. Evidence. Timing. Strategy. And now the truth was unstoppable. Blake's facade cracked, thinly veiled panic in his eyes. The room's energy pivoted, silently declaring victory, not mine alone, but for everyone marginalized and overlooked. I looked around, the skyline behind the glass walls shimmering. City lights reflecting the quiet triumph. This is what justice feels like, I thought. Measured, strategic, undeniable. The board meeting ended with a firm commitment to implement reforms. Apologies were offered, not theatrically, but with recognition of wrongdoing. A subtle victory, yet potent. Later, in the elevator, Latoya broke the quiet. You've changed the air in this building. People can feel it. I smiled faintly, feeling the weight lift slightly, but knowing the journey wasn't over. It's just the beginning, I said, but today, we made a statement. Merit and integrity cannot be ignored. That night, city lights flooding my apartment. I reflected. Every sacrifice, every late night, every calculated move had led here. From coffee-fueled evenings, mentor guidance, HBCU lessons, community solidarity, to meticulous chess-like strategy, justice was realized. And in that realization, I felt something deeper. Empowerment. Not just for me, but for every black professional navigating corporate corridors where bias often hides behind glass walls and polite nods. This was victory, cinematic, hard-earned, and just the start. The week after the boardroom showdown, the atmosphere at Redwood Global was different. Electric, tense, but alive. I could feel eyes on me, some curious, some cautious, some impressed. For the first time in months, the air didn't carry the subtle hum of microaggressions. It carried acknowledgement, accountability, and a hint of fear in those who had underestimated me. I walked into the office Monday morning, heels clicking against polished floors, carrying my bag, My laptop. My presence like armor. Marcus avoided eye contact. Blake lingered near his office, pretending busyness. But the board had spoken. Our reforms were going live. And the ripple had begun. Emails flooded in. HR directives. Promotion clarifications. Mentorship initiatives. Diversity and inclusion workshops. Every piece of communication confirmed the subtle revolution I had engineered. Every acknowledgement was a small but powerful victory. At my desk, Simone leaned over, smiling. Aisha, did you see the memos? They're actually implementing the transparency measures. I smirked, leaning back. It's more than just memos. It's a precedent. They've seen what happens when integrity meets strategy. People like me, like us, cannot be erased. Latoya added quietly, and the younger team members, they're talking about it. They feel like there's a path forward now. I nodded. That was always part of the plan. Empower not just myself, but the next generation of Black professionals. Ensuring they see a blueprint for claiming their worth. HBCU lessons. Mentor advice. Street wisdom. They weren't just personal fuel. They were a gift to the community I carried in my heart. The Atlantic Project, now fully credited, became a case study internally. Clients praised the work again, this time publicly acknowledging the contributions of the full team. Emails circulated praising leadership, teamwork, and accountability. Every acknowledgement was a quiet victory lap, but more importantly, a statement. Justice could be methodical, undeniable, and empowering. Blake called a meeting midweek. I walked in, anticipating tension. He attempted casual small talk, but it was strained, edges sharp. Aisha, he began, I want to acknowledge the work you've done. And, the way you handled the boardroom. His tone was hesitant, almost unfamiliar. I folded my arms, letting silence hang for a beat. Thank you, but this isn't about me. It's about Redwood, about the culture we cultivate here, about accountability, integrity, and opportunity for everyone. He swallowed, nodding. The old smugness had left his eyes. That was power, not mine alone, but truth wielded strategically. Later, I stopped by HR to review the mentorship program rollout. Black and brown employees were now being actively mentored by senior leadership, given visibility, and encouraged to claim their contributions publicly. It felt cinematic, like the city skyline outside mirrored the possibilities inside the company. That evening, I met my mentor, Ms. Johnson, at a small cafe in Brooklyn. Soul food aromas, jazz low in the background. The chatter of locals, comforting and grounding. You did it, Aisha, she said, pouring coffee. You didn't just fight for yourself. You created a blueprint. You made them respect what they often ignore, our intellect, our drive, our worth. I smiled, thinking back to late nights coding, drafting reports, attending HBCU lectures, absorbing wisdom from elders, from the streets, from mentors. It was never just for me, I said. It was for everyone who's been overlooked, underestimated, or erased. It's about showing up, keeping receipts, speaking truth, and making them see us. She chuckled. And you made them see you. Loud and clear. Back at my apartment, city lights reflecting off the Hudson. I reflected on the journey. Every detail had mattered. The allyship, the evidence, the timing, the courage. Every obstacle, microaggressions, subtle sabotage, office politics, had been a lesson in strategy, patience, and resilience. I pulled out a photo of my grandmother. Her hands folded in prayer, eyes full of pride. Keep your receipts, baby. Dress for the seat they don't think you deserve. Her words were alive in me. Her wisdom had guided every move. Every calculated risk had been infused with the lessons she taught me: strength, dignity, and the refusal to let the world define your value. Redwood was changing. Slowly, methodically. The culture was shifting, not just for me, but for the community I represented. My peers now had a roadmap, a clear signal. Merit cannot be silenced. Talent cannot be erased. Integrity will be acknowledged. That night, I wrote a post on LinkedIn. Careful but firm. Today, integrity won. Today, merit and hard work were recognized. But this isn't just about me. It's about creating space for every professional who's ever felt invisible. Stand firm. Document your work. Speak your truth, and uplift those around you. We rise together. The post gained traction. Comments poured in. Gratitude. Inspiration. Shared experiences. People identifying as Black professionals. Women in corporate spaces. Young HBCU grads. All resonating with the story. Seeing possibility through someone who looked like them and refused to be sidelined. That night, as jazz hummed softly in my apartment and the city buzzed below, I felt it, a quiet power. Steady and unyielding. Not vengeful, not angry, but victorious. Not because I had won against Blake or Marcus, but because I had redefined the rules of engagement, carved space for fairness, and lifted others along the way. Empowerment wasn't a moment, it was a ripple, and the ripples were just beginning. I closed my laptop, breathing deeply. Tomorrow, the work continues, but tonight, I savor the victory. Every late night, every mentor call, every strategic move had led here. The fight was worth it. The message was clear. We see you. We honor you. And we will not be erased. From my apartment, I could see the skyline stretching endlessly. I smiled, thinking of every young Black professional watching, wondering if they could make it. Survive the glass towers, the microaggressions, the biases. I wanted them to know, yes, you can. Yes, your voice matters. Yes, your strategy, your intelligence, your integrity. They are unstoppable when wielded wisely. And somewhere deep inside, I knew, this was just the beginning. Months had passed since the boardroom showdown. Redwood Global felt different, still fast-paced, still high pressure, but infused with a sense of accountability and respect that hadn't existed before. Walking through the Midtown office now, I noticed subtle changes. Colleagues exchanging ideas openly. Junior employees stepping up without fear. The air lighter but charged with purpose. I often paused at my desk to reflect. It wasn't just about promotions or boardroom victories, it was about culture, visibility, and legacy. Every policy shift, every mentorship connection, every acknowledgement of merit was part of a bigger picture. The future of Black professionals in spaces that had historically overlooked us. One afternoon, I got a message from a young HBCU grad I had mentored remotely. Aisha, your story inspired me to speak up in my first major meeting. They listened. I felt seen. Thank you. I smiled, leaning back in my chair. This ripple effect was the real victory. My fight had become a blueprint, a signal to anyone navigating corporate spaces that fairness is not a fantasy. That strategy, evidence, and courage could redefine the rules. Looking out at the city skyline, I thought of my grandmother's advice. Dress for the seat they don't think you deserve. Keep your receipts. Every move, every calculated risk, every act of integrity had honored that wisdom. The lessons were clear. Document your worth. Keep records of your work, your ideas, your contributions. Evidence is power. Speak your truth strategically. Timing, clarity, and courage turn individual voices into collective influence. Lift others as you climb. True empowerment multiplies when shared with your community. Integrity is unstoppable. Systems can be flawed, but consistent, principled action creates change. Redwood had reformed, but more importantly, the culture had shifted. Employees now saw accountability not as a threat but as a principle. And Black professionals could envision a future unbound by tokenism or microaggressions. I leaned closer to the window. City lights reflecting off glass towers. My fight had been personal, but the outcome was communal. Every young Black professional, every overlooked talent, could now see a pathway. That was the real legacy. And as I turned back to my work, I whispered to myself, we rise together. Always. Like if you stand for fairness. Share to empower your community. Comment your story. Let's rise.